Hi, my name is Kim Brittingham, and I wrote this book, Read My Hips, How I Learned to Love My Body, Ditch Dieting, and Live Large. It's a collection of personal stories from my life that have to do with body image. For way too long in my life, I held back from doing things that could make me blissfully happy and joyful, just because I was afraid of what other people might think or say about my body. My book was published in 2011, and to be honest, I haven't done much to promote it in over a decade. Why? Because I told myself that the time for my book was over. Women didn't need it anymore. Boy, was I wrong. You know, it used to be that getting decent clothes in a certain size was really hard to do, and when my book came out, that started to change. We also started to see more diversity in the types of women's bodies that were being represented in the media. Some super empowering women started to emerge, just in entertainment alone. One example, Lizzo. Here's what prompted me to make this video. Last week, 3 things happened. First, I got an email from someone who read my book and loved it, and I haven't gotten that kind of mail in years. And she also remarked that she was surprised the book was published in 2011, I guess because as she was reading it, she felt that it still had relevance. Then I was listening to the podcast On Purpose with Jay Shetty, and he was interviewing his wife, Roddy Devlukia. She's a nutritionist and a dietitian, and she said to Jay, "I remember when we met. I was so conscious about the way I was being perceived and the way my body looked that I would want to eat a way that I thought made me look better. And especially in this last year. The last couple of years I've been trying to improve my relationship with food because I didn't realize how much it was impacted by the way I wanted to look versus the way I wanted to feel." She then went on to describe the mindset that she was trying to change. Quote, "Thinking, how am I going to sit in a way where I'm going to look the most flattering? And how am I going to move my body in a way where maybe they don't get the bad side of me?" So you're constantly living through other people's perception of you. I feel like having a better relationship with food has allowed me to care less about those things and live from inside out rather than outside in. The third thing that happened was I was listening to the Mel Robbins podcast, and she was interviewing Jamie Kern Lima. Now, this is a woman who built $1 billion cosmetics company on her own and then became the first female CEO of L'Oreal. Now, she sounds like a badass, right? And she is. But listen to some of what she shared. "Most of my entire life, I believed my weight determined my worth. Right now, 89% of girls and women will opt out of meaningful activities, including interaction with friends and loved ones, when they do not like how they look. We miss out on our lives when we're waiting on our weight." This was a lie that took me most of my entire life so far to learn. It wasn't until my daughter's 1-year birthday. We're at this hotel and I'm about to opt out of swimming again because I don't want to wear the swimsuit. I want to sit on the chair on the side of the pool, all covered up, and miss out on this moment in her life. When I realized, what has waiting on my weight already cost me in my life? And the answer, way too much. So these 3 things, all coming at me in the same week, made me say, I can't believe we still have to talk about this. And when I say that, I'm not trying to shame anyone out there who's holding back in life because they're self-conscious about their body. I know that. I was there. I've been there. I was there for decades. I blame the ongoing dysfunction of this sicko society we live in. So I decided it was time to drag out the old book and read a little bit from it again because obviously it's still necessary. But before I dive in, you may be wondering, how could I go for all these years without realizing that these issues are still prevalent? I'll tell you. First of all, I'm really not that tuned into pop culture. Also, I have a pretty small circle of people that I see on a regular basis, and the women around me are like me. They really don't give a crap what anybody thinks about the shape, size, or texture of their body. So for years, I was just doing things that I loved, and this book was behind me. Well, I'm pissed that so many women are still holding back from living rich, full, delicious lives just because we live in this twisted body shaming culture. And that is why I am going to read a little bit to you from Read My Hips. I stood and skittered on light feet across the blistering hot beach toward the cooler, damp sand at the water's edge. It soothed my soles. I strolled into the frothy white surf, and the ocean rolled forward to meet me. It curled around my calves, cold and refreshing, and I gasped with relief, followed quickly by a lusty shiver. I advanced deeper into the churning soup, my legs disappearing into the bubbling blue-green white, the sweat behind my knees swept clean by a trillion tiny sand grains. Waves crested, and the sun's rays shot through their filmy peaks, creating fleeting turquoise windows where hundreds of tiny fish reflected the light like shards of mirrored glass. As the ocean rolled back out again, I saw clear to the bottom a tan talcum powder carpet of pretty parallel ridges etched by the tide. With my every step, the sandy floor yielded and surrounded my foot in curative coolness. A ruffled strand of seaweed brushed my ankle like a cat. As the ocean floor sloped gently downward, the water touched my upper arms for the first time, and I took a sharp breath. The oppressive humidity was whisked from my flesh at the water's touch. The antidote was shockingly immediate. I shuddered with a pleasure that seemed to originate far beneath the ocean floor, to travel through my body and exit on my exhilarated breath. I lifted both feet and propelled my body forward through the salt water. I was weightless. I was the water, and the water was me. I arched my back like a porpoise and dove under a coming wave. I emerged laughing. Somehow, here in the ocean, I existed in a state of high energy and complete tranquility, all at the same time. I could feel the space inside my body turning a serene pale blue as I merged with my watery surroundings. There was no pain here. There was no discomfort, just my body and movement, and a giant, salty, undulating basin cradling me, rocking me under a cloudless sky. When I returned to the beach, I was smiling. I walked with ease. Maybe I even sashayed. Droplets of cold water on my skin evaporated quickly under the streaming sun. The sun was thirsty. I felt it laying itself over me, dressing me, reclaiming me for its own again. Maybe this is what they call being in perfect harmony with nature. At the very least, I can confidently call it bliss. Some fat girls avoid going to the beach because they don't want to be seen. They don't want to expose themselves to harsh criticism, even when it's unspoken. I used to be one of those girls too. There were other people on the beach with me and in the water. I was aware of them. I even talked with some of them. But the whole gorgeous, invigorating experience of a day at the beach was entirely mine. It had nothing to do with those other people or what they were thinking or feeling in the same moment. Nor did the experience have anything to do with my cellulite, the thickness of my arms, the protrusion of my belly, or my double chin. I walk the beach in a bathing suit because I want to immerse myself in the entire sensual environment. I want to feel the sand on my skin, stuck to my sunscreen in gritty exfoliating little bits. I want to see the salt dried in little white rings on the tops of my thighs. I want the coolness of the water rushing between my legs. I want the heat of the sun freckling my shoulders. I want the vapors of coconut suntan lotion in my hair. I want a wedgie full of pebbles. I do. And I'm not about to swaddle myself in towels, sulk under an umbrella, and limit my personal joy just because of what might be going on in someone else's private mind. I spent years feeling self-conscious at the beach. I covered up in all manner of t-shirts, capri-length pants, and mesh ponchos. And if I dared to take to the water, the march between my place on the sand and the ocean was excruciating. I imagined I felt every pair of eyes on the beach boring into the dimples on my ass, scrutinizing my hips to waist ratio, taking disapproving note of the lack of definition on my upper arms. I tugged uncomfortably at my bathing suit. I sucked in my gut. I walked stiffly toward the surf as though tensing my body might hold all the fat in closer to me and I would jiggle less. I made a dash for it, as much as one can dash with a body carried as rigidly as a mannequin. Ready or not, I plunged into the ocean without appreciation for it. It wasn't a pleasurable surrender. It was a forced and painful jolt. I just wanted to get my body underwater as quickly as possible before someone could see it and recognize its imperfections. There were times in my past when I lived with a constant concern about the conclusions other people were coming to and the judgments they were making about my appearance. In my preoccupation, I missed so much, not just on the beach, but everywhere. These days, I live more often from the inside out. What matters is what I'm experiencing from inside here, from inside me. It's what I'm seeing as I look out through these windows that are my eyes, what I'm hearing and touching and smelling, whatever I'm sensing in any way that feeds my heart, mind, and soul. I'm not about to curtail my joy. I'm going to luxuriate on that beach in all of my fat, flabby glory. I'm going to swim and breathe and sigh and dive for sand dollars and tickle the bellies of fish.